Yahoo Sports on the scene. Steve Cofield along with our lead MMA writer, Kevin Iole, following up UFC 141 here at the MGM Grand Garden Arena. Good card. Main card was filled with some really good fights, and Alexander Gustafsson was one of the young stars, along with Jimmy Hedis, who was showcased on this card. Gustafsson dominating victory against Matyashenko. Where does he go from here? Because I heard a lot of questions in the press conference, and people want to rush guys. Oh, you're ready for John Jones? I don't think he's ready for that yet, but he's an intriguing prospect at 6'5".
It's kind of interesting the fact that you're saying rush somebody to face John Jones, who himself has only been around for a couple of years, Steve. So, that's interesting. But I think Gustafsson is a fascinating guy only in the sense that he showed he could handle a top-level wrestler tonight. He handled one before in Matt Hamill. He's got the size, the length that would make him a kind of an opponent that could do something with Jones. I think it's 3-4 fights down the road before we're talking about that, but I think at least he's the body type. If you're going to pick a guy that maybe could compete with him, I think he would have the body type that might be able to compete with John.
So it worked out nicely for UFC because they put Hedis, they put Gustafsson on the main card, and I'm sure some people were like, why are they doing that? Johny Hendricks deserves to be on these main cards. Certainly Jon Fitch does, but it was the way Hendricks took out Fitch, and I know there are a lot of people out there who root against Fitch, and I kind of feel bad for him. These things happen, but for Johny Hendricks, huge victory, beats a top 5 guy, if not the number 2 guy in the world at welterweight, and did it in convincing fashion.
Yeah, I mean, Jon Fitch has lost one fight in, the last, 10 years. I mean, it's just been, or 7 years, it's been incredible, the run he's been on, and the fight he lost was to GSP, and after really getting dominated in the first round, he came back, Steve, in that fight and put together a pretty good bout against George. So, Fitch is a top drawer guy, maybe a notch below where he was at his peak, but still, I mean, I don't think that, that should not take anything away from Johny Hendricks' victory. It's hard to say that it was like a comprehensive victory just because it happened so fast. Guys get caught in a striking game and the fights can end very quickly, but hey, Johny Hendricks said he was going to go out, throw his left hand, he said he had the power to knock him out, and he did exactly what he said he was going to do.
These are the guys you and I discussed a while back, and we kind of argued in the middle of the year. I said, I think there's a class coming up here. There's about 4 guys, Pierce, Ellenberger, Hendricks, and then Rick Story, who I think eventually can get into that class because they were being blocked by Fitch and Koscheck. So now you saw a little change in the guard tonight. So where does Hendricks go from here? I mean, he's from a background standpoint, you expect a lot from him, and he just happened to run in a Story a while back and lose the fight. But so where can he go this year? Who does he take on?
Well, he's now a contender. There's no doubt. I mean, he's got to face top-level guys. Jake Ellenberger, a guy like that. I think, he's got to be in the top mix with somebody along that line. So, I think that would be a good fight for him. You put him in with a guy like that, see if, how he handles it. I'll tell you what, Johny Hendricks is going to be tough to beat because there's not many people other than, when you think about it, St. Pierre might be the only guy out there that could, out-wrestle him. And can St. Pierre do it? Who knows? But George has surprised us before with his wrestling. So, there's nobody else, though. If you eliminate George, there's nobody else in the division that really is going to out-wrestle Johnny. Maybe you might neutralize him, but you're not going to out-wrestle him. And, Johnny's striking is not what you would call textbook, but I'll tell you what, he hits, and he hits hard. And when you have that kind of punching power, that's game-changing.
Well, you mentioned, I think during the week we were talking about, hey, champions at the end of 2012 at 170. Yeah. It's going to be a crazy year. Rory McDonald could be one of them. You could match these guys up. Either way, with GSP on the shelf and then, Diaz and Condit kind of figuring out who's going to be the interim guy, this is going to be a nutty year at welterweight.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, certainly, you can't forget Nick Diaz. I mean, this guy, what he's done, and he's got a great fight coming up with Carlos Condit. And I think Rory McDonald is a guy that makes a lot of sense for Johnny as well. I mean, Rory McDonald is really a fascinating prospect, a strong guy who's really good in all aspects of MMA. I would like to see him be a little bit more aggressive. He's getting into that Faraz Zahabi style where he's more cautious. And I think Rory, you don't want to throw caution to the wind, but I think, he's a better fighter when he's letting it rip. Certainly Johny Hendricks is going to let it rip. So I think it's fascinating in this division. There's so many good fights that could be made, and if they make that fight with Johny Hendricks and Rory McDonald, you're going to have potentially a future champion coming out.